Welcome back, scientists and lovers of the sea. I'm Mary Alice Cerrito-Fettis, Chair of Whalefest Monterey. Thank you, Nicholas, for the Whalefest theme song, Whales, Whales, O Majesty. Thank you to Chris's Fishing and Whale Watching for the fabulous footage from their whale watching excursions that you will see throughout our Whalefest. For the past 10 years, we were able to invite you to attend science lectures in an auditorium, visit interactive exhibits around the wharf, participate in arts and crafts projects, and dance to live music. Due to the pandemic, we had to go virtual, so we asked our speakers to record their presentations, the nonprofits to tell us about their research and activities through videos, and the musicians to play for us on video recordings as well. Thanks to everyone's hard work, we are able to bring you 4 nights of 2 hours each of Whalefest, an educational event dressed up to look like fun, to inspire, educate, explore, and especially to empower. Whalefest Monterey celebrates the biodiversity of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary and the marine nonprofits, institutions, agencies, and businesses that affect it. The National Marine Sanctuary Foundation, Monterey Bay, awarded Whalefest Monterey and Fishermen's Wharf Association the prestigious Sea Star Award for Education and Outreach for 2020. You can contact us or send us questions at info@montereywharf.com or whalefest.org. Also, to look at tonight's schedule, you can view whalefest.org or montereywharf.com. And while you're there, if you could please remember to push on that donate button to support the science and education that we bring you. Tonight, Tim Thomas will inform us about our Native American marine history and the whaling era. We will show you how to create the whaler's art, scrimshaw. Peggy Stapp of Marine Life Studies will report on the whale entanglement team, and from NOAA, we will learn about ocean guardians, elephant seals, and harbor seals. You will meet Sandy the gray whale from Pacific Grove Natural History Museum. You will be delighted by creative and unique melodies from our 2-time Grammy Award winner, Mads Tolling. Afterwards, Dr. John Ryan from Mabari will take you for a deep dive into the musical world of whales. And now for Mr. Tim Thomas, who is a walking history museum. He provides wharf walks on weekends that encompass the history of our Monterey Bay, from the Rumsian Native Americans to the present day. Today he will show us the history of the Rumsian and afterwards the era of the whalers.
Welcome everyone, my name is Tim Thomas and I am a fisheries historian, and this is a very special little vignettes, little special wharf tour for Whalefest 2021. I like to start my tour here because the first, and what this tour really is sort of a cultural history of the wharf, but really it's sort of a cultural history of the wharf neighborhood and a cultural history of all of Monterey. And I like to start my tour here because the real first commercial fishermen in Monterey, and I'll use this term commercial because it's truly how they made their living, were the native people, the Indian people of Monterey, who were the Rumsian people. Rumsian was the language they spoke. And we could trace the native culture into the Monterey area, about 10,000 years or so. When you think about what Monterey may have looked like 1,000 years ago, or even just 500 years ago, the land lots of lakes, lots of fresh water, at least enough to sustain that population because it was never that big. Huge herds of deer and elk and tule elk and grizzly bear. I have read accounts of early explorers coming to the Monterey area, especially in the fall months, talking about bird life. So many birds, they said, you couldn't see the surface of the little lakes. So the ducks would darken the sky. Look onto that bay out there. It'd be so filled with seals and sea lions and stellar sea lions and sea otters. They actually thought that the bay was paved. They wrote in their diaries that the Monterey Bay is like a brown cobblestone. Certain times of the year, waves would crash up on the beach, pouring fish onto the beach. That's how abundant it was out there, which tells me there was never any real time of hunger for the Rumsian people. They got into the bay in beautiful boats made out of tule, like this one, only bigger. And tule, those big tall grasses, those reeds that grow along the wetlands, and they'll fish everything goes out there. They'll make beautiful little fish hooks out of abalone or mussel shell. They'll use traps and baskets and spears and nets. And what I personally think is the absolutely coolest thing in the entire world, they're the first divers going to that bay. Monterey Bay today is the dive capital of the world, am I right? When we take a walk along the Monterey waterfront, especially on the weekend down by the Coast Guard Pier, that place would be filled with rubber people. They're the first divers going to that bay. And we know that because of burials that come out of the ground in recent years. And you cannot build a house along this Monterey waterfront without running across a Rumsian burial or two. The males have what's known as surfer's ear, which is little bony growth because of the opening of your ear. You're spending a lot of time in the cold water like the Monterey Bay. Which makes a lot of sense, don't you think? You see an abalone this big, you're going to dive down there and get it. And abalone played a very important part of their life. They ate it. They used the shells to make tools like shovels and bowls and fish hooks. They used the shells to decorate baskets, to make jewelry, and they traded it to other California Indians, things they could not get here in Monterey, like obsidian, which is a volcanic rock, which they're using for arrow points and spear points. And perhaps some of you out there have seen that old Kevin Costner movie called Dancing with Wolves. Yeah, that is Indians of South Dakota. If you watch that film closely, and it actually comes on cable TV all the time, if you watch that film closely, you'll notice there's a lot of abalone in the clothing and the regalia that they're wearing. Well, as far as I know, there is no abalone in South Dakota. Got to get there some way, right? It's going on these trade routes. A lot of it, like most of it, starts right here in Monterey. Monterey literally was the abalone capital of the world. And they can trace Monterey, or abalone can be traced back to its point of origin. And they have found Monterey red abalone in hidden sites as far back as Minnesota. Now here's the best part, is the word abalone, which really is universal, they use all over the world, come from the Rumsian people. So they have a word for the red abalone, which is this guy right here, which is the largest of the abalones and the predominant abalone in that bay out there. That word is alloon. Alloon, and the linguists have traced the word abalone all back to this word alloon that starts right here in Monterey. Yeah, so if you're a Rumsian fisherman and you want that bay for a loon or anything else out there, well, you want it to be a beautiful day. Well, most of us who live here in the Monterey area know that Monterey isn't always a beautiful sunny day, especially in the summer. In the summer, we get those thick, foggy days. So the Rumsian people actually had a song that they would sing to get rid of the fog. I'm not going to sing it for you, but knowing I was do the special tour, I got into my time machine. I went back in time and I recorded them singing that song. What that song is saying in Rumsian, it's telling fog to go home beyond the bay out there because Pelican is out there. He is beating your wife. He's flying through the fog. So this area where we are now standing, this Custom House Plaza, is actually a very important piece of land for the Rumsian people. It wasn't a village site, but it was a fishing site they had here, and it actually stretches all the way up to what we now call the Lower Presidio. And if you further you walk up that Lower Presidio and you look at the ground, even you'll notice how dark it is. It's almost black. And it's really littered in broken abalone shell, and that's called midden soil, and that shows the human use this land here for thousands of years. So in the 18th century and 19th century, when whales and whaling products were something this country really needed to have, the big whaling companies out of Nantucket or New Bedford would go on these 3, 4, and 5-year whaling cruises. Usually the first place they went to were the Azores, which the little islands off the coast of Portugal. Pick up these Azorean whalers, who are known to this day to be great whalers. They set on the eastern seaboard and around the Cape Horn and up the California coast, all the way up to Alaska, and all the way across the Pacific to Japan. And they wouldn't return to their home port until they filled the whole of the whaling ship with whale oil. But something happens in California in 1848. Gold discovered on the American River. And all these ships come into San Francisco. I mean, let's face it. Let's say we are all part of the whaling crew out of Nantucket. Had to smell dead whale every single day for the last 2 years. And they told you there was gold up the hills for taking. What are you going to do? Heck, without whaling, I'm getting me some of that gold. And that's exactly what these Azorean whalers did. When they got to the gold fields, they found out that it wasn't as easy as they were told. So he said, the heck with that, I'd rather be whaling. They go back to San Francisco, but they have no money because they didn't get any gold, and they have no way to get home because everyone abandoned their ship. So they're kind of stuck. So in 1854 or so, 17 guys are sitting on a pier in San Francisco. One guy goes, you're going by Monterey. Sure looks a lot like home, and there are a lot of whales down there. So he migrated down from San Francisco, set up a whaling station in this building right here, and began whaling what they called the old-fashioned way, a little teeny 28-foot boat, 6 guys in a boat. Can you imagine hunting a 100-foot blue whale in a little teeny boat like this? This is how they would do it. They'd push off the beach every morning and row or south to the whaling grounds. They'd see a whale. This guy at the bow would yell out, "Baleia," which means whale in Portuguese. Fired this gun called the Greener's gun because it was invented by a guy named Greener. Has a harpoon in it with a rope attached to it that was attached to the boat. Now, this gun was not designed to kill whales. In fact, it was designed to slow them down. So if you were a whale and hit with a sharp harpoon like this, what are you going to do? Sometimes those whales would turn and sink these boats or sound or dive to the bottom. If this guy's fast enough to cut their rope, they got dragged down with them. Most of the time, the whale will start running through the bay, dragging these guys behind them for hours at a time. And all the people that lived in Monterey in those days would line up along the coastline here and watch these guys get dragged through the bay. They used to call that a Nantucket sleigh ride. Finally, the whale will slow down, will hit it with big long hand harpoons, and yes, they would kill it. I mean, that was the name of the game. Then usually the whale will sink. So put little markers out there because it will float back to the surface for about 10 days or so. Then they go back, to get it, they'll tie a rope behind its tail and tow it back to the beach right in front of us right here. It usually took all day and 2 boats. When they get back to the beach, they'll strip off the blubber. That's all they wanted was the blubber. They didn't part these dead whales. Then tow the carcass of the dead whale back onto the bay. Well, the currents, being what they are here in Monterey, will just push the carcass of that dead whale onto the beach that we now call Del Monte Beach. Now, you got a beach full of dead whale. What else do you think you're going to get down there? It sure didn't smell very good, that's for sure. Big, giant grizzly bears. Some of the hills behind us, you'll feed up the carcass of those dead whales because grizzly bears love to eat whales. Now, I read accounts of people who lived in Monterey in those days, and they said at night they hear grizzly bears walking through their neighborhood. So ever hear me around here complaining about raccoons getting into their garbage? Forget it. So everybody stays away from that part of town, or weather's down here boiling down blubber. So whaling all day, boiling blubber all night, you get kind of hungry. So guys will cook up like a chicken inside the hot whale oil or make this special kind of Portuguese pastry. Of course, they're selling the whale oil, which they're using to lubricate machinery parts and to burn in lamps. In the 19th century, all lighthouses relied on whale oil as its light source. So the whaling industry in Monterey was very, very profitable, but also very, very competitive. We started with 17 whalers in 1854. By 1870, there were a couple hundred here. They sent for their families, they're living here. There were up to 5 whaling companies operating on that bay at one time. It would not be uncommon for more than one whaling company to converge onto the same whale, and they'd have battles out in the bay over whose whale it belonged to. They actually ended up suing each other in court. and son judge have determined whose harpoon went into the whale first. So the harpoonist, who's actually the guy here at the stern, these two guys will switch places. He'll work with the local blacksmith and put little secret marks at the tip of his harpoon point. And the judge will go, oh, that's Jose's harpoon. That whale belonged to the Monterey Whaling Company. The Monterey whaling industry began to slow down after 1874, not because these guys took too many whales, because the truth is they never took that many, because other products were invented that began to replace whale oil. In particular, kerosene came on the market. They could not compete with that. Became full-time farmers, ranchers, dairymen, other kinds of fishermen. Portuguese whalers started the tuna fisheries in California. So next time you guys eat a tuna sandwich, you can thank that guy right there for it. There was one company that continued to operate strictly for the tourists. They're coming to Monterey and love to watch these guys get dragged through the bay. In fact, I believe the Hotel Del Monte actually paid a particular whaling company just to operate strictly for their guests who are staying at the hotel. But today, Monterey, actually all of California, has a very large Portuguese community, and many can trace their descendants back to the original 17 whalers that came to Monterey in 1854. So all that whalebone ends up on the beaches. There were actually whole industries developed on that whalebone. There were companies that were producing little souvenirs of the whalebone that were selling to the tourists, things, cards out of the cards look like the Cardinal Mission with abalone inlay and things like that. But at one time, all of the sidewalks in Monterey were made out of whalebone. And this is the last of it right here. This is all whalebone that you see here. Some of this dates back to the 19th century. Some of it is fairly new. So over the years, tourists, others have come and unfortunately have taken some of this as a souvenir. And this building now is controlled by California State Parks. And to their credit, they've actually replaced the places that were stolen with actual whalebone.
Thank you, Mr. Tim Thomas, for our history of Monterey, especially about our Monterey whalebone sidewalks. We now have Kath Mackey and her daughter Jennifer Mackey Loskamp and her sons Asher, Miles, Jason, and Graham Loskamp demonstrating the art of the whalers known as scrimshaw. On those long, lonely voyages, the Portuguese sailors from the Azore Islands carved incredibly beautiful designs into whalebone, and more often they used the tooth of a sperm whale. Here we are using, instead of whale teeth, soap bars donated by Comfort Inn, Monterey Bay. Instead of a crude sailing needle, we use a toothpick. Instead of candle black, soot, or tobacco juice, we use black shoe polish. Decide on a design in advance. Perhaps even draw it on a piece of paper, and perhaps draw it onto the soap. Carve the design with a toothpick. This takes patience. Rub black shoe polish over the soap bar. Then, with a slightly damp sponge, remove the excess shoe polish, leaving the imprint of your design. Now you have your own scrimshaw work of art.
Thank you for joining us for Virtual Whalefest Monterey 2021. Tonight, we wrap up our 11th annual event that celebrates the gray whale migration along the coast of our Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. My name is Amity Wood, and I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator for the sanctuary, and I'll be your MC for this virtual symposium. We have an incredible lineup of speakers to bring you the latest in ocean research and conservation, so we hope you enjoy tonight's captivating talks by our expert speakers that have donated their time to share their stories. Our first presenter this evening is Peggy Stapp, founder of Marine Life Studies. Tonight you will learn about the whale entanglement team, the anatomy of a whale rescue response, updates on recent entanglements, and Marine Life Studies' lost and abandoned fishing gear removal project. Listen how this highly trained team utilizes special equipment to rescue whales from a slow, painful demise due to life-threatening entanglements, as Peggy highlights some recent rescues. This work is conducted under a specialized NOAA permit issued to the Marine Mammal Health and Stranding Response Program. Peggy is a Michigan native and had a life-changing experience when she saw her first whales on a whale watching trip in Maui. Inspired to take her passion into conservation action, she founded Marine Life Studies in 2006, a nonprofit organization dedicated to research, education, and whale rescue in Monterey Bay. Peggy, a volunteer herself, serves as its executive director. She is a co founder of the Whale Entanglement Team, a principal investigator to conduct research on whales and dolphins in Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and a co investigator Level 3 responder under a NOAA permit for whale rescue. Please enjoy Peggy's presentation entitled Saving Whales from Life-Threatening Entanglements, the Whale Entanglement Team, and updates on recent entanglements and projects.
Peggy, are you ready to give your presentation for Whalefest?
It's today? Oh my gosh.
Oh, it looks like you're not ready. I'll come back.
Oh, not to worry. I'll be ready. Watch. Welcome to Whalefest 2021. It's finally here. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Peggy Stapp, founder of Marine Life Studies and co-founder of the Whale Entanglement Team, known as WET. I'm going to give you an update on entangled whale responses and on our lost and abandoned derelict gear project. But first, I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you a story. As Whalefest is all about inspiring and empowering people of all ages to explore through learning about the natural world, I hope this story will inspire you to pursue your dream, whatever it may be.
I was born and raised in Michigan and started my journey in a snowsuit at 15 months old, growing into a Mustang suit, conducting whale and dolphin research in the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary.
My dream as a little girl was to be in the water someday with a dolphin. But once an adult, I decided if I wanted to realize my dream, the first thing I needed to do was to learn how to scuba dive.
Then during a dive trip, a pair of wild bottlenose dolphins swam up to us, a young calf with its mom. The calf swam circles around me. Then they moved to the sand on the shelf where we had placed a stick to indicate where we needed to turn back to the dive boat. The calf actually grabbed the stick from the seafloor and played with it, then swam to its mom with the stick in its mouth, and they continued on their way. In January of 1996, I took a trip to Maui and saw humpback whales for the very first time. On my last day of the trip, a pair of humpback whales, a mom and calf, went under the Linois, a whale watch boat with glass viewing windows. The calf looked up through the glass. It changed my life completely. I decided at that moment I wanted to be involved in whale and dolphin research within the next 5 to 10 years, but was able to start the very next year with a lot of hard work and some luck. I started working with Oceanic Society's whale and dolphin research trips in the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And by 1998, I was volunteering during the winter months for the Hawaii Whale Research Foundation. I founded Marine Life Studies in 2006. And in the fall, we had an entangled whale reported. And we were so surprised there was no formalized trained entanglement team in Central or Northern California, none north of Los Angeles County. We were able to assemble a team and rescue the humpback whale, but we made it our mission to have formalized trained teams. Hence, we started the Whale Entanglement Team known as WET. Marine Life Studies Research Scientist Program inspires high school and adults at any age to pursue an education in marine science. Student interns from all around the globe have participated in our Research Scientist Program. Our Ocean Literacy Educational Series provides free hands-on educational programs for children. It is so important to give back to the community and to show kids the importance of becoming active stewards for our planet. Take It to the Streets is our community cleanup effort that takes place in the streets of neighborhoods in cities and rural areas. Since greater than 80% of pollution found during beach cleanups is from land-based sources, this program gives children and adults who do not live directly on the ocean the opportunity to actively play a part in the solution and help keep pollution out of the ecosystem. Here are 3 of our young volunteers. CJ Pagasion, he started volunteering during high school. We have Georgia and Ben Bentz, who took one of our first educational classes when they were 10 years old, and they're twins. We're proud of all 3 of them. They've grown into passionate stewards of our planet. Ben started outside the box consulting to help other organizations with education curriculum. And Georgia is currently studying biology at UC Santa Cruz. CJ graduated from UC Davis with a BA in design and is now a junior motion designer. Please enjoy the animated video CJ designed and produced.
Every year, thousands of marine mammals travel through the Monterey Bay. Sometimes, us humans get in the way of their journey. Luckily, there is a way we can help. Marine Life Studies saves animals in danger so they can continue on their journey unhindered. Want to find out how you can help? Volunteer or donate at the links below.
Just wanted to warn you, the next image is X-rated. I'm topless.
Here I am at 20 months old, already portraying a boat captain with my trusty seahorse as my crew on Lake Erie. Mary Whitney, driving a sailboat at age 7 on a family vacation. Her love of the ocean and its critters led her to start Fluke Foundation, and we were destined to meet in Monterey, California. Mary and I co-founded the whale entanglement team known as WET, which may be one of our greatest achievements. When we first started WET, it was the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary Conservation Working Group, known as the QUIG, that helped us put WET on the map. And through the years, we have a lot of organizations that are now part of our network. Plus, WET is part of the newly formed West Coast Large Whale Entanglement Response Network. We only work from boats, never getting in the water with the whale. All whale rescue is conducted under a special NOAA permit.
Here are some typical entanglement configurations. This is considered a peduncle wrap or tailstock wrap. Oh, my flipper is all entangled. It's also known as a pectoral fin. Now I have a body wrap I'm entangled in.
Whale rescue is not for everyone. It's very complex and dangerous for the whale rescuers as well as the animal, a task best left to the experts. For this reason, responding to entangled whales involving a close approach less than 100 yards to the animal may only be attempted by authorized persons working under NOAA's Marine Mammal Health and Stranding Response Permit, who are experienced, trained, knowledgeable, and have the proper support and equipment. Here is an example of why. There was a calf with its fluke hog tied to the line going down to the pots on the seafloor, unable to swim. Its mom was very agitated, head and tail slapping next to the calf as if trying to free her youngster. We just completed the assessment to determine the complexity of the entanglement. You need to be very judicious as you want to make the proper cuts so all the gear can be removed from the animal. You don't want to make a cut, lose your working line, and leave the most detrimental part of the entanglement still on the whale. A vessel came between us and the entangled calf, so I radioed over to let them know we had an entangled whale. No one on that vessel had been trained for whale rescue. Well, they decided to take matters into their own hands, even though we tried to reason with them to let us finish our work to free the calf. Humpback whale calves grow as much as an inch a day and gain almost 4 pounds an hour. They cut the line so the calf was swimming free. The whale was still entangled with the worst part around the tailstock, and the line was wrapped around with the buoy still attached. Safety is always our number one priority at Marine Life Studies. So right after the shelter-in-place went into effect due to COVID-19 back in March of 2020, I spoke to our local health department about continuing our work to monitor the whales for the California Dungeness Crab Fishing Gear Working Group and the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. The data collected informed the Risk Assessment and Mitigation Program, known as RAMP, of the working group to reduce the risk of entanglement in fishing gear. We assured the health department of our strict safety protocols that included limiting our crew to 3 to 4 people, wearing masks, social distancing, thorough hand sanitizing, and sanitation of all equipment continuously throughout the day on our 40-foot whale rescue research vessel. And they gave us the green light. We were very fortunate to be able to continue our work, which was a blessing, as on Saturday, May 16th of 2020, we received a call from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife aboard their vessel, the Wolf Eel. They found an entangled whale. The wildlife officer reported that the humpback was believed to be grounded, meaning the gear on the seafloor was keeping it in the same area and the animal kept swimming in a circle. We were already on the water monitoring the whale, so we dashed to the area where the wildlife officers were standing by. We knew we had to act fast since the marine weather was changing and the wind was coming in. We deployed the drone, but the visibility through the water wasn't great. The drone is an important tool for assessment, and it gave us a good idea where the entanglement was on the whale. The whale's tail was so weighted down we could not see the entanglement from the boat. We couldn't see the whale's dorsal fin either, so we could not approach too closely until we knew what lines were coming off the whale and where they were in the water column. After finishing the assessment, we concluded that the whale indeed was grounded. Since we had such a limited crew due to COVID, we needed one more team member. Since we were less than 5 miles from Moss Landing, we decided to pick up an additional team member. We wanted to get the telemetry buoy on the trailing line. Our concern was that the strong winds could possibly cause the gear to shift. This might enable the whale to drag the gear and leave the area. When we arrived back on scene with the entangled humpback, we noticed the configuration of the entanglement had changed. The line trailing with the buoys was no longer visible. We needed to conduct additional assessment before attaching the telemetry buoy now. Then the wind came in, so we lost the opportunity for the telemetry attachment since the sea conditions made it too dangerous to attempt. We made a plan for the second operational period for the very next morning with the goal of attaching the telemetry buoy. We arranged to meet at 5:15 to prep the boat, prep the telemetry buoy, and be ready to leave the dock at first light. We had a small window of opportunity because the forecast predicted very strong winds before noon. Once we arrived to the area and had a visual of the whale, we deployed the inflatable. As the crew on the inflatable approached the humpback cautiously, the whale started to peck slap, so they pulled back and waited. Then the crew saw the right opportunity where they could attach the telemetry buoy, so they proceeded and were able to accomplish the goal. You can see them raising their hands up to let us know on current sea that they made the attachment. The crew returned back to current sea to obtain the underwater camera setup to get additional assessment of the entanglement. They were only able to get one pass completed when the wind came in with a vengeance. We returned to port to plan a full response effort with some of our partners along with the U.S. Coast Guard. The next day, after completing more assessment, we determined what lines to cut that would free the whale of all the gear. The team was able to accomplish this with just 2 cuts by early afternoon.
The whale's free! Thank goodness!
Through the analysis conducted on the gear, we believe the whale's entanglement involved 5 sets of commercial Dungeness crab gear. It was determined the whale first became entangled in Bodega Bay, but caught 4 additional pots, associated lines, and buoys when it swam into the shallower water on the shelf of the north side of the canyon in Monterey Bay. We are very excited as this particular whale was resighted since the whale was freed. Oftentimes we don't get a resight of an animal we disentangle, but this particular whale was recently seen up by San Francisco in November of 2020. Well, we'll always be at the ready to respond to entangled whales, but we wanted to do something proactive to reduce potential entanglements. We started a pilot program called Unseen and Beneath the Surface to remove abandoned and lost fishing gear on the sea floor, which no longer has a buoy marking its location on the surface. Gear can be lost for a number of reasons, including rough seas due to storms, lines cut by other fisheries that troll, or by a propeller on a boat. That derelict gear and line can potentially entangle not only whales, but sharks, turtles, dolphins, large fish, and other marine wildlife. We contracted Monterey Bay Diving, a local company. They have the equipment and expertise to detect the gear on the sea floor. The EdgeTech 4125 dual frequency side sonar scanner produces a live stream scan of the seafloor that is displayed on a computer aboard the vessel. This is an example of 4 potential targets along with the exact location. To retrieve the gear from the seafloor, we have a special salvage permit from the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. We also utilize local commercial licensed crab fishermen to help us retrieve the lost and abandoned gear. This particular pot had 34 rock crab trapped inside. There is supposed to be a piece of cotton line that will deteriorate in order for the crabs to escape in case the gear is lost. This pot did not have that mechanism, so it was an illegal setup. This was a lucky day as the crabs are freed and returned to sea. This particular trap was most likely cut when a salmon fisherman got caught in the line of the pot while trolling. We know this because there was a metal steel line intermixed with the line attached to the trap, and the end of the line was cut. All gear is cleaned, measured, and recorded. Measurements include total weight, dimensions of the trap, length and diameter of the lines, and if there are any buoys or any other material that is associated with the pot. Identified gear with tags, buoys, or other markings is returned to the owners. We retrieved 1,430 pounds of derelict gear, including 22 pot traps, 3,967 feet of line, 3 mud anchor weights, and a variety of buoys. Although our project was a success, our method of retrieving the gear was standard protocol others were utilizing globally. But we thought there had to be an easier and more efficient way to remove the gear. So I contacted Brian Keefe from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, located in Moss Landing, California, our backyard, which I will refer to as MBARI. I met Brian in the fall of 2015 during his work with MBARI when he spotted an entangled whale. From there, I was invited to give a presentation on whale disentanglement at MBARI in December of 2015. Well, Brian brought in Brett Hobson into the conversation, an MBARI mechanical engineer. They proposed scenarios of different means to safely remove the pots from the seafloor. The procedures discussed were developed at MBARI to recover a disabled AUV, also known as autonomous underwater vehicle, or other oceanographic scientific hardware. So MBARI's strong research and development for ocean science paid us an unexpected dividend. We needed to test this proof of concept, and MBARI lent a hand to help prove the concept while practicing an emergency equipment recovery maneuver. We are grateful to the staff at MBARI for their contribution, and now we have incorporated what we learned during the proof of concept test that will be beneficial and prove the efficiency of our procedures to remove this gear from the seafloor in the future.
I hope this story will inspire you to pursue your dream, even as an adult. I was 41 years old when I fell in love with humpback whales that steered my life in a whole new direction. So you are never too old to pursue your dreams. Hey, be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Vimeo, our YouTube channel, and our website at marinelifestudies.org, O-R-G, or whaleentanglementteam.org. Thank you so much.
Our planet is an ocean planet. NOAA's National Marine Sanctuary System, comprised of 14 national marine sanctuaries and 2 marine national monuments, protects some of the most iconic underwater places throughout the United States, but we can't do it without you. No matter where you are, the planet's health is in your hands. We hope these short videos from Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary inspire you to help care for our ocean and help spread the word that Earth is blue.
The NOAA Ocean Guardian School Program is really an opportunity to have kids out in the environment doing hands-on projects that are really stewardship-based. So the kids are learning by doing. We're teaching kids that through doing these conservation projects and these stewardship projects, they're actually helping to protect the ocean.
My name is Gianna, and I'm an ocean guardian, and why I love being an ocean guardian is because I really like saving sea animals, but what I don't like is if there's a bunch of plastic. That's not what I like to see.
I would love to see more kids not sitting in classrooms, but being outside in their environment, because I really truly believe that by having kids out here under cloudy skies, sunny skies, the crash of the waves in the background, I think we're changing kids' lives. We're giving them the opportunity, and I really feel like kids they want to know how to fix this environment. They hear the stories and they want to know how they can change it. And we're giving these kids the opportunity to have their environmental voice. We're lending them that opportunity.
I did get to go to the county commissioner's office and speak so that they might be able to make a law to ban plastic straws in restaurants. That was pretty cool because I'm in 5th grade and I get to do that. I might be making a law, so that would be cool.
One of the greatest things about this program is that we're always trying to make the link between education and resource protection. And this program has really done that. We're seeing now that with the hard work of kids and getting them involved and the continued work that they are able to provide, this is the first time that we've actually been able to link an education program with actually protecting the environment. So we're seeing it. These kids are doing it. We'd love to see this program into more schools, into more regions, into more states across our country.
We are Ocean Guardians!
Thank you, Noah, for the visits to our Monterey Bay friends. Now we have Jacqueline Schneider and Hannah Harver of the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History, located in Butterfly Town, USA, home of the monarch butterflies.
Hello, and welcome to the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History, located on Forest and Central Avenue in Pacific Grove, California. This museum has been around since 1883 and has embraced this new digital age with virtual programming for Science Saturdays, hardcore natural history, field trips, and much more. I'm Jacqueline Schneider, the Community Science Outreach Coordinator, and I'm responsible for Science Saturdays, the Watershed Guardians, and other outreach events.
I'm Julia Madden-Folk. I work in guest services at the front desk, as well as being the museum's volunteer coordinator. The most iconic feature of our museum is the life-size whale sculpture out front that you can usually find kids climbing all over. Well, did you know that this whale has a name? Her name is Sandy, and she is a California gray whale. You can tell that Sandy is a gray whale as opposed to another type by looking for the white and gray patches or modeling patterns here on her side. These gray and white patterns are actually scars left by parasites and barnacles, and they can be a very important tool in identifying individual whales by looking at photos and comparing the markings. Isn't that amazing? She also has these two blowholes up on top that would create a heart-shaped spout if she was a real whale. Sandy is an amazing concrete sculpture, and she was created by artist Larry Foster in 1974.
Did you know that Sandy likes to travel and has actually lived in other places? For a decade, she traveled coast to coast, educating thousands of people about whales and why they are important to our planet. She was built in Oakland, California, and from there, she moved to Caltech in Southern California. Places she has visited include the Santa Barbara Museum of Art, the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, the New England Aquarium, the California Academy of Sciences, Lake Elizabeth in Fremont, and the San Francisco Zoo. She even spent time staying with her sister, Fina, a fin whale sculptor who lives at UC Berkeley.
She arrived at the museum in 1982, making it her permanent home. Since then, many generations have enjoyed looking at and climbing on Sandy.
Gray whales are the California state marine mammal and can be found in Monterey Bay from January to March. Gray whales have the longest known migration of any mammal, traveling 10 to 12,000 miles round trip every year. They travel between their winter calving lagoons in the warm waters of Mexico and their summer feeding grounds in the cold Arctic seas. Their favorite food are amphipods, which are crustaceans similar to krill and shrimp. Gray whales capture amphipods by swimming slowly along the sea floor, where they roll on their side to disturb the sediment and suck in seawater. They use their baleen plates on each side of their upper jaw to filter out their food.
When gray whales are feeding, 3 to 5 throat grooves expand to hold vast amounts of seawater. The whale then compresses its throat and pushes the water out through the baleen plates in its mouth. Baleen is made of keratin, which is exactly what's in our nails and hair. In the Arctic feeding grounds each summer, an adult gray whale can gulp about a ton of food every day. The upper jaw is dimpled, and each of the little depressions contain one stiff hair. That's another thing that whales and humans have in common as mammals: hair.
The museum is currently closed, but let's take a peek at the museum's collection. Here are some baleen plates from a few whale species. The one on the far left belongs to a humpback whale. This yellowish baleen plate is thought to have come from a gray whale. It kind of reminds me of an old-fashioned broom. What does it remind you of? I brought this giant bone outside so we can compare it next to Sandy. This is the jawbone of a 1-year-old calf. Juveniles, or young whales, are also known as calf or calves. After a calf is born, it will travel with its mother for the estimated 6,000 miles to get to their feeding grounds in the Arctic. Whales have backbones like humans. Here are a few vertebrae from different whale species. Do you think you can identify what species they are from? This one here is from a gray whale. The next time you are in the museum, try to locate this skeleton and identify the marine mammal it belongs to. January marks the arrival of the gray whales in Monterey Bay. It is also when we celebrate Sandy's birthday. Saturday, January 30th, the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History is hosting Digital Science Saturday, Amazing Migrations, to celebrate the 39 years Sandy has been at the museum. For more information, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
A native of Denmark, Mads Tolling now lives in the Bay Area. He is a master violinist. He has composed violin concertos, which he has performed with the Oakland Symphony Orchestra. He has won 2 Grammy Awards with his Turtle Island String Quartet. He has played with jazz greats, Ramsey Lewis, Chick Corea. He played for our Whalefest last year, and I think you'll enjoy Mads Tolling.
Hey everybody, Mads Tolling here. So I played violin this year at Whalefest, and now things are a little different, so we're doing it electronically. But I just want to tell you a little bit about how I play the violin and how especially I get these sounds electronically that I'm able to get. And I get that by using something called a loop station or a looper. It's right here. It's called the boomerang. And what I do on this, this equipment here is I'll start a loop by pushing, and then that will basically record what I'm playing. And then after that, I'm able to layer on top of that by pushing the same button. I'm using all these different buttons to essentially layer, let's say play a bass line, then play chords and rhythm as well. I do this thing called the chop sometimes. And then I'm able to change from this loop, which is one sound, one cohesive sound, and then I can go to another one and change completely. That might be a different tempo, might be a completely different concept altogether. So I can switch between these 2 loops, for example, when I use this loop station. Each loop station is a little bit different, but that's basically what I'm doing with when I use the loop station. So I hope that's kind of helpful. For myself, I learned all of this. I went to Berklee College of Music. I was also in a group called Turtle Island String Quartet, and now I run my own band, the Mads Tolling and the Madsmen. And during this last 10 months or so, I've actually had to, adapt a lot of what I do into playing more solo. So in that case, I need to actually create a bigger sound as a solo artist, and the loop station has really been helpful in doing so. So I hope you enjoy this, and thanks so much for watching.
And to close out our presentations for Virtual Whalefest Monterey 2021, I hope you enjoy our most popular live stream science concert from 2020. Join John Ryan, Senior Research Specialist with Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, and Nicholas Fettis, Whalefest Music Director, for an incredible deep dive into the musical world of whales as they explore new scientific findings about whale songs and compose on piano and cello together with these massive underwater musical beings. Please enjoy the art of science of a whale song.
Mary Alice, thank you, Nicholas. And good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for this exploration of whale song, the art and the science. And through art, Nicholas beautifully also introduced some of the science that we're going to explore tonight. The spectrogram that you've been watching respond to the piano shows you one of the ways that we analyze whale song, where time is moving along the horizontal and pitch or frequency is represented in the vertical. So I'm just going to temporarily stop this and move into some of the scientific material that we've learned from studying whales right here in Monterey Bay. Okay, well, it really is tremendous to live here along the Central California coast. And one of the most amazing parts of living here is having this National Marine Sanctuary right offshore. And all of the sound recordings from the ocean that we're going to hear tonight are from the same location. Some old technology here. That location is right here, right in the center of the sanctuary. And this black dot is the location of this cabled observatory, which is connected to shore by copper and fiber optics that carry power and communications from scientists working on shore right to the deep sea. And this Mars Observatory stands for Monterey Accelerated Research System. At any given time, it may be hosting many science experiments. And one of those science experiments is simply listening, recording and analyzing sound from the ocean. And here, right here is a picture of the hydrophone sitting atop a 1-meter tripod. And there's the extension cord that plugs it into the main node and carries it back to shore for us. And Mars is sitting on a geological feature known as Smooth Ridge on the continental slope, just off the continental shelf here, adjacent to Monterey Submarine Canyon. So it's really, if I was a hydrophone, I'd want to listen here. It's a beautiful setting. And in thinking about whale song, it's useful perhaps to start with human song. We're used to looking at how we represent music on a sheet with time and timing along the horizontal and pitch or frequency along the vertical. This song by Howard and Allen, this is where I learned that the fish on the land ain't happy. And now translating that very same idea into, in a sense, a sheet of music written by whales. Similarly, along the horizontal, we have time and timing. Along the vertical, we have pitch or frequency. And this is a logarithmic scale. So we're going from 10 to 100 to 1,000 hertz or cycles per second. And this purple background means that there isn't a strong sound being recorded by the hydrophone. Wherever you see bright colors, splashes of color, those are strong levels of sound, high levels of sound produced by 3 baleen whale species that inhabit our sanctuary and rely on it. In fact, the humpback whale, fin whale, and blue whale, all baleen whales, so they filter food out of the water with their baleen. And let's start perhaps at the top of the scale. Humpbacks can sing over a tremendous range of frequencies. So imagine you were at the opera and the bass singer was filling the theater with wonderful low frequency sound. And then you heard the soprano. You heard the soprano, but you couldn't see the soprano. So you searched the stage and you thought, well, maybe the soprano is entering in the back and getting some interaction with the audience. But you don't see the soprano anywhere. And then you notice that the bass singer, the lips of the bass singer are moving in perfect synchrony with the voice of the soprano. And that's kind of what a humpback whale can do. It's a one whale opera. They can span 8 octaves, more than 8 octaves, one animal. So it's pretty incredible. And this one, we're looking at just the lower end of this humpback whale song. And what I want you to notice is just the incredible structure. So this humpback whale song begins here, ends right about here. You can see it starts at the high frequency range, drops down, changes to a new theme, a third theme, fourth theme, fifth theme, and a sixth theme. And I'll describe what a theme is in just a moment. But you can see this beginning repeated right here as it again sings the same song with some degree of variation, improvisation. And the other reason I emphasize here that these are songs with variations on a theme is that humpback whales, they learn song from each other. A population, for example, in the Northeast Pacific will share their song. They all sing the same song, but it's continuously evolving as they learn and as they hear from each other. And so in that sense, they are making variations on their own theme continuously. And one of the things we study is not just when song occurs, but how that song changes in time, because it is in fact part of their culture, part of their cultural transmission. So the humpback whales are all up here between roughly 80 hertz and 1,000 is what I'm showing. Now let's drop down into the bass section here. We're going below 100 hertz here, which, you know, a bass singer in the opera might sing right about there. So dropping below that, we have this series of notes here, which Nicholas and I will explore with the cello. They're called A notes. We have B notes, and at the very bottom, well below our limit of hearing, are the C notes. Now, the only other singer here is the fin whale. They have a simpler song, producing a series of pulses where they just modulate the frequency of these pulses. You can see those represented here. So if we were together in the same room, I would have a very special and powerful speaker that would allow you to feel the blue whale song and the fin whale song, because it would move a lot of air in the room and the walls would shake. So tonight we're going to adapt, since we're doing this in a virtual format, and we're going to raise the pitch or the frequency of these songs. Yes. So now we're going to just hear one of those phrases from a humpback whale song. So the shortest sound you will hear in a humpback whale song is referred to as a unit. We could consider it a note. Those are arranged into phrases, and phrases are repeated as themes. Then a collection of themes is a song. And an individual whale may sing their song for hours to up to a day. And as Roger Payne described long ago, they will even time their surface breathing so that they don't interrupt the rhythm of the song. So now we're going to hear just one phrase from a humpback whale. Okay, and now let's imagine for a moment. Imagine that you weigh 200,000 pounds, yet you feel weightless. And imagine that you can dive into the deep, dark depths of the ocean and lower your heart rate to 2 beats per minute. Or imagine that you can speak using only your voice, no technology, and you can be heard by someone 100 miles away. These are some of the everyday experiences of a blue whale. In fact, we're going to start with blue whale song when we bring in the instrumentation in a moment. So for now, I'm just going to, again, point to the elements of a blue whale song. This indicator for F is the fin whale, so we're temporarily going to ignore that, and we're going to focus on the lowest frequency song units of a blue whale song, C, down near 11 hertz. The third harmonic of the B call, its fundamental is down here, still below our limit of hearing, around 14.5 hertz. And the harmonics, however, we can see 5 harmonics above that fundamental, rather 4 above the fundamental. And the strongest one is the third harmonic. That's what we use to study blue whale song, because the signal is so strong and clear. So the relationship between this C note and the third harmonic of the B, the frequency is about 4 times higher. And then multiply the frequency again by about 2, and you're near the top of this A call frequency range. So first we're going to explore the relationship between these notes with the cello. So Nicholas, if you would bring that wonderful cello up, we can just hear the individual notes. Now what you see here is about 33 minutes of song, and the A calls are happening with their own cadence at a higher frequency of occurrence. We're seeing the B calls, and before every B fundamental is a C. So it's like a precursor note. So maybe let's start at the lowest end. Now this C call is 11 hertz, but the cello can't do that. However, it can do 5 times 11, 55.
This is 55 hertz right here, and I tuned the cello down.
Excellent, 55. And okay, and that's 5 times higher frequency than the actual sound that would shake this room. Then we go up to the third harmonic of the B call, right around, in reality, 44 hertz, but we're going to multiply that by 5 again, and we end up with a 220 hertz. Okay, yeah. And then we go to the top of the blue whale scale, which is 88 by 5, 440 hertz. Okay, let's hear each of those one more time, Nicholas, please.
There's 55. 220. 440.
Great. Okay. So those are the building blocks, and you can see they can arrange these notes in a variety of ways to create song. So let's now go to an actual excerpt from one of the songs recorded by Monterey Canyon. And here's that highest frequency A call. As you can see, it's staccato or percussive or pulsed in nature. That occurs in this, the first in this song sequence, followed by a rest, then the lowest note, the 55 in our case, and then followed by a 2-part B note. Then there's a rest, and then the whale repeats that sequence. So Nicholas has translated this into the cello.
Here we go.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's on the level of blue whale improvisation. Wonderfully done. So thank you so much, Nicholas. Now let's turn to, what we can learn by studying blue whale song. Actually, I'm going to first do a sound check. If I'm playing a clip, is it okay to play the clip now? It's okay. Great. Okay, so first we're going to actually speed up that blue whale song segment that Nicholas just translated for cello. We're going to play it at 10 times its normal speed so that it's easily heard through ordinary speakers. Okay, now we're going to turn to the science. I'm just going to highlight one result that was recently published. The work was led by Will Astrike, who's a graduate student at Stanford Hopkins Marine Station. And he's been working with Jeremy Goldbogen's lab. And Jeremy and his team put tags on the backs of whales that allow them to observe the undersea world from the perspective of the whale and make important measurements. They just attach to the back with suction cups and fall off, and then they go retrieve them and learn what that tag can teach them. So Will and his work is combining this technology that rides on the backs of whales with the hydrophone technology sitting at the bottom of the ocean. And each of these is very complementary. Each one needs the other to really understand blue whales. So we had 5 years of recordings, continuous recordings, observing blue whales singing year after year. And so Will analyzed that data, and that describes how the whole blue whale population is behaving within range of what we can hear, the animals that are within earshot of our hydrophone. And yet, in order to understand that population level behavior, we really need that individual level perspective. From the hydrophone, we only get song behavior, but from the tags, they can get song behavior, foraging, and migration. So this plot here for the months of the year, starting with May here, winter in the middle, represents the amount of song we're hearing. And if the value is right about 1, it means we're not hearing song. So song begins to rise up slightly in July and then sharply reaching a peak in November before declining and again becoming non-detectable here. Now, the reason the song disappears from our hydrophone by about February is not because the blue whales have stopped singing. They're still singing their hearts out in breeding habitat much further south at low latitudes. So we always have to keep in mind all these aspects of migration, foraging, and acoustic behavior together to understand the patterns that we see. So let's now look at something that we noticed when we were studying this pattern of song. What we found is that blue whales don't sing the same amount day and night. When they first begin singing early in the fall, the amount of singing that occurs during the night rises sharply, such that the night to day ratio is above 1. So up here at 1.5, mean they were singing about 50% more during the night than during the day. And then as the season progresses toward winter, this ratio of night to day drops off and it eventually drops below 1, such that they're singing more during the day. And we wondered, what would cause this change in singing behavior throughout the year? And what Will found from information collected by the whales is that during the fall, they're very focused on feeding, building up their energy stores for that incredibly long migration. And so during the day, while they're feeding, they're not singing. And therefore, the song is more intense at night. By the time we get into migration, they're singing as much or more during the day. And these are very long migrations. And the whole time they could be just continuously singing. Yeah, they're getting a number of nicknames this evening. Beethovens of the deep. I'm going to call them the jazz and opera singers because of how they seem to improvise so readily on these complex songs and how they can cover such a tremendous frequency range. So turning back to the humpback whales, remembering this is our spectrogram, and each of these can be considered a note. Here we have an example of a song lasting roughly 15 minutes, a pause, then being repeated. And so what we're going to do now is answer the question, great, we can hear the song, we can describe when it's happening, but what does that teach us about their lives? So for this, we really need to think about how is it that we study the ocean? It's a very complex and difficult to access environment. And yet, whether it's sensors in the ocean or satellites orbiting the Earth, watching the ocean from above, we can learn a lot about the ecosystem that they are living in. And here along the California coast, we're in an ecosystem called the California Current Upwelling Ecosystem. And in this ecosystem, particularly during spring and summer and into fall, the prevailing winds are northwesterly, and that forcing of the wind pushing the surface of the ocean combined with the Earth's rotation caused surface waters to move away from the coast. And the result of that is that deep, cold water rises to the surface along the coast. And that Cold water is responsible for not only the invention of the wetsuit, but also the fertilization of the entire ecosystem, because those deep cold waters, like a compost pile, are enriched in the nutrients that fertilize the growth of microscopic algae, and from there the food web branches. Ultimately, even the whales rely on that process of photosynthesis. So here we have the sanctuary boundaries again. There's where we're listening. These green diamonds show where Francisco Chavez at Ambari monitors the ecosystem. This location here shows where Rafael Cudella at UC Santa Cruz monitors a toxin that can enter the food web and affect whales and marine mammals. And these gray dots show where Jared Santora and others monitor krill, what the whales actually eat. So we're going to examine all of these elements of the ecosystem and how that relates to the behavior of humpback whales. So let's start with the first 3 years of our recording. And each year, what you're seeing represented by the bar is the total amount of song. That is the percent of the time that we heard them singing. During those 3 years, the amount of time that we heard them singing more than doubled. This is a really large behavioral signal. And so we wonder, well, what could cause such an increase in the amount of song we're hearing in the ocean? And the most obvious and simplest hypothesis is that there was more song because there were more whales. And here's where we worked with Nancy Black at Monterey Whale Watch and Karen Forney at NOAA, who were synthesizing the whale watch observations. And so their data can help us answer that first hypothesis. And this is the number of humpback whale sightings per trip in each of these years, corresponding to the same time periods. What we can see is that it doesn't appear that the number of whales sighted could explain all that strong increase in song. The second hypothesis was that something about the ecosystem changed and influenced the behavior of the whales. So we're going to start at the very beginning. There was a program run out of UC Santa Cruz for a while called Wind to Whales, because in fact, whales depend ultimately on the wind that drives this ocean circulation and fertilizes the ecosystem. So let's look at those upwelling winds, the northwesterly wind strength over those 3 years, climbing year after year, just like the song occurrence. And this upwelling, driven by the winds, would enrich the productivity of microscopic algae. And in fact, Francisco Chavez at Ambari measured that. This is the core of the food web, what transforms non-living matter into living matter so that whales can eat. And those trends are quite parallel. Now we're going to look at the krill, which is what the whales actually eat. And again, Jared Santora and NOAA collected these data. And what we see is this zero line means normal or typical. If it's below zero, it means there are fewer krill, less food available for the whales. If it's greater than zero, there's an abundance of food, more food than usually available for the whales. And what we can see is the same increasing trend over the 3 years. And the idea here, when we look down at the small level of life in the ocean, is that if you're a whale and you need to gather a lot of energy to support a massive body, it's a lot easier to do when there's a lot of food resources available. And likely you would have to spend less time and energy gathering your food and building up your energy stores, and therefore perhaps have more time for song behavior. And so these aspects of the ecosystem represent a positive relationship. One supports the other. However, as I mentioned, this monitoring of a toxin called domoic acid, which occurs in certain phytoplankton, microscopic algae around the world, it would cause amnesic shellfish poisoning in humans. And in marine mammals, it can cause, it's a neurotoxin. It can cause dysfunction and even death. So let's look at the toxin concentrations And what we see is that they were highest in that first year when we had the most whale sightings and the least song. And they decreased thereafter. Now, being that this is a neurotoxin, it could certainly affect behavior. So the hypothesis there is that more food, less toxic food, would enable more of this healthy behavior of song. So, whales, all animals in the ocean, all life forms in the ocean, they're not independent of their environment and their ecosystem.
Thank you, Dr. John Ryan and Nicholas Fettis. Thank you to our Whalefest enthusiasts for watching this evening and for all of Whalefest. Thanks to everyone's hard work, we were able to bring you 4 nights of 2 hours each of Whalefest, an educational event dressed up to look like fun, to inspire, educate, explore, and especially to empower. It takes about 200 volunteers to provide for a successful Whalefest. To them, we are eternally grateful for their creativity, generosity of time, patience, and devotion to Whalefest Monterey. Thank you, our Whalefest committee, especially Wendy Brickman, Antoinette Saylor, Peggy Stapp, Amity Wood, Judy Proud, Craig Johnson, and many others for their many creative hours. Thank you to all our sponsors, especially Fishermen's Wharf Association and Arts Council of Monterey County. For any questions or comments, please go to info@montereywharf.com or info@whalefest.org. We look forward to seeing you throughout the year at further presentations from Whalefest, and we look forward to seeing you at Whalefest Monterey 2022. We will now close Whalefest Monterey 2021 with Nicholas Fettis playing Mystical Sea and Song of the Sea. If you missed any of our program or past Whalefest symposiums, please go to montereywharf.com or whalefest.org. And while you're there, please push on that donate button to support the cause of science, education, and the bounty of the sea. Thank you.